Hey guys, you all know about Valhalla from Asgard, right? The legendary hangout for fearless warriors who've earned their place in the afterlife. But guess what? Our protagonist waltzes in without fighting a single real-life battle. Instead, his battleground is online, where he's a pro gamer and literally the best in the world. He's got a massive fan base who think he's the ultimate gaming god. So yeah, today's story is going to be a wild ride, full of fun, action, and a whole lot of wait, what? If you're new here, smash that subscribe button. And if you're enjoying the recap, don't just think about it. Subscribe now. I'm aiming for 10,000 subscribers before New Year, so let's make it happen. Without further ado, let's jump into today's story. Our tale begins at a big gaming tournament. Outside the hall, there's a giant poster of our protagonist, Tae Ho, striking a killer pose and advertising some snack. Fans are swarming it, taking selfies and hyping him up. Inside the hall, it's game time. Two teams are ready to battle, and the announcer yells, "Now entering the star of today's show, the MVP of the 6th World Championship, the MVP of the 7th World Championship. It's Tae Ho." The crowd goes absolutely nuts as our boy steps onto the stage like a legend. And then bam, next thing he knows, Tae Ho is in Valhalla, standing in front of massive warriors who look like they bench press mountains for fun. One of them glares at him and says, "Tae Ho." Tae Ho, shaking like a leaf, stammers, that's me?" The warriors start giving him the once-over. One goes, "Tae Ho? Weird name." The other adds, "And what's up with his outfit?" The first one nods, squinting. "And he's kind of tiny." They exchange a glance, then suddenly, boom, one of them points at another and shouts, You're the bastard who killed me." The other warrior smirks and chimes in, "Wait, it was you?" Now they're squaring up like they're about to throw hands, and Tae Ho is just standing there thinking, what in the world is happening? Did they fight each other? Are they about to fight me? But then, plot twist, they burst out laughing and do an epic bro handshake, all smiles and good vibes. "You're here because of me. Now you know it," one of them says. "It was a good fight," the other replies. "But wait, does this mean you died right after?" The first warrior scratches his head, looking a little sheepish. "Well, yeah. After that, some kid with 5 braids took me out. He grabbed my sword and yelled, 'Father.'" They both burst into even louder laughter. Akin says, "You've got a son." "Yup," the other grins. "He's going to be an incredible warrior one day." "Actually, scratch that, he already is." Meanwhile, Tae Ho is frozen in place, watching all this chaos unfold and thinking, what kind of insane sitcom have I walked into? Then, flashes of his last moments hit him like a power-up. He remembers being in the championship, totally owning the match, when poof, everything went black. Holding his head, Tae Ho mutters, "Wait, did I die? Is this real? Or am I just having a really weird dream?" Just then, a lovely girl steps forward, points at him and says, "That guy? He's a champion. He's won tons of duels." The room erupts. The warriors of Valhalla are losing their minds. "A champion?" one yells. "The king of duels." Another shouts, "He's small, but dang, he's something else. A duel king, he must have crazy good techniques." They're all raising their hands and shouting, "I want to fight him." Tae Ho, frozen and overwhelmed, slowly turns to the girl who just threw him under the bus, in the best way, and thinks, yup, this is all because of her. Our protagonist suddenly recalls the exact moment of his death during the tournament. He remembers the crowd's cheers fading as his vision went dark. His soul drifted above, staring down at his lifeless body sprawled on the stage. He thought to himself, "Is that me?" Before he could process it, a bright light erupted in front of him. Shielding his eyes, he squinted and saw the same girl from earlier, the one who introduced him to the warriors of Valhalla. She looked serene, her voice soft as she said, "Those who lose their lives at the peak of a glorious battle carry the soul of a warrior." Still confused, he muttered, "I lost my life? Am I dead?" The girl smiled gently and extended her hand. "Come with me," she said. Panicking, he stammered, Where are we going? It's not hell, right?" Without another word, she took his hand, and in an instant, they were enveloped in a swirling cascade of rainbow lights, transported via the Bifrost. It was just like the epic scenes from Thor, but for Tae Ho, it was more disorienting than cinematic. The girl looked at him and declared, "Valhalla." Hearing that, Tae Ho's eyes widened in terror. Valhalla, he shouted. The flashback ended, snapping him back to the present. He stood among the warriors, piecing it together. Valhalla? The afterlife in Norse mythology? Only warriors who die in battle can go there. But wait, she must have mistaken me for one. He imagined the girl from earlier and thought, she probably thinks I'm some legendary fighter. This is bad. Desperate to clear things up, Tae Ho rushed to explain. Listen, I'm not a warrior. I'm a pro gamer. I just play games for a living. The girl tilted her head, confused. Games? You mean duels? No, not duels. Just games. Look, just send me back to where I was. Tae Ho begged. Their conversation was cut short by the sudden blare of a horn. The girl turned towards the sound, her expression shifting to one of focus. The enemy is here. Everyone prepare for battle, she commanded. The warriors erupted with energy, their cheers echoing across the field. Tae Ho, on the other hand, froze in panic. Battle? What battle? This is insane. Moments later, chaos erupted. Valhalla's warriors charged headfirst into a horde of beast-like monsters. Claws, swords, and roars filled the air. Tae Ho stood frozen amidst the carnage, gripping a sword he had no idea how to use. This is nuts, he thought. What do they expect me to do? I've never even held a sword before. As he scanned the battlefield, his thoughts raced. I died to get here, and now, what happens if I die again? Suddenly, a massive beast loomed over him, its weapon raised high. Tae Ho's heart stopped as he braced for the blow. Just then a warrior dashed in back of him, shouting, "Duck, young man!" Tae Ho instinctively hit the ground as the warrior unleashed a devastating attack, sending the beast flying. The warrior grinned, his teeth gleaming, and said, "You don't know about a saga, do you?" Tae Ho blinked in confusion. "Saga," he muttered. The warrior noticed the confused expression plastered on our protagonist's face. With a confident smile, he explained, "The fact that you've made it to Valhalla means your accomplishments in life were widely renowned." The warrior's grin widened as he leaned closer. "Your achievements are your power here. The greater your feats in life, the stronger you'll become as a warrior." Sweat began to trickle down our protagonist's face. My achievements? He thought, panic creeping in. He strained his memory, only to recall countless hours of eating snacks and gaming. All I did was eat chips and play games. Then it hit him like a brick. Wait, my game character. His mind raced to the Immortal Warrior, Kalsted, his in-game avatar. Determined, he pointed forward dramatically, shouting, "This is it." A radiant blue light erupted from his body as intricate runes shimmered before his eyes. The warrior nodded approvingly. "Ah, so you have a saga too. You see the glowing letters, right?" The protagonist blinked at the runes, his eyes glowing faintly. "Yeah, I don't recognize the symbols, but I can somehow read them. It's like using an image translator." The words glimmered. Saga, the Immortal Warrior. Synchronizing. 1% complete. The protagonist adjusted his stance, gripping the sword with trembling hands, mimicking a fantasy hero's pose. The warrior, now slightly amused, raised an eyebrow. In his head, the protagonist celebrated, "The title belongs to Kalsted. If I can wield his power." A sly smile crept onto his face. "I'm literally the strongest in this world." "Look straight ahead," the warrior shouted, snapping him out of his daydream. "What?" the protagonist asked, just as a massive beast with a hammer appeared. The hammer slammed into the ground, sending the protagonist flying to his knees. Gasping for breath, he thought Kalsted would have crushed this thing in seconds. "What's wrong with my saga?" His eyes darted to the glowing runes. Saga, synchronizing. 1% complete. Frustrated, he shouted at the runes. "Is this some kind of insurance policy? Write it bigger." The warrior laughed heartily. "What an amazing spirit friend you are. This is as far as my help goes. The saga doesn't end here. Keep building your own story." Walking away, he added, "Name's Bjorn. Stay alive, and let's meet again." The protagonist groaned. 1% of Kalsted's power? But seeing the beast, he muttered, 1% is enough. I think. He noticing his sword there, and running towards it and dodging the monster attack. He picked up his sword, and the holding tightly, our protagonist's mind drifted to an epic scene. His game character, Kalsted, standing tall, sword in hand, cutting through hundreds of soldiers as if they were made of paper. In the present, gripping his sword tightly, he slid forward and thought, "This is it. My legend with Kalsted begins now. As the beast lunged at him, the protagonist dodged, trying to match Kalsted's finesse. Time to channel my inner Immortal Warrior, he thought, picturing the shouts of the virtual audience from his gaming days. The announcer's voice boomed in his memory. A storm sweeping through the enemy camp. Kalsted of Tae Ho. With newfound confidence, he activated his Saga. His sword cut clean through the beast's neck with one swing, the monster's head rolling across the ground. In that triumphant moment, he couldn't help but think, the warrior charge, it's just like a storm. But then reality came crashing down. His fantasy-fueled maneuver was too much for his real-world body. He tumbled awkwardly, rolling across the ground like a runaway barrel. Sitting on the ground, dazed, he rubbed his head. Wait, is this a new Saga ability? Maybe some sort of speed buff? He staggered to his feet, gripping his sword once more, staring at the monster in front of him. Determination returned to his eyes as he thought, all right, with this Saga ability, I'm definitely going to survive. Somehow, after the battle, the warriors gathered, drinking and laughing. One slapped another on the back, boasting, "So you survived too? That was just a warm-up for me." The protagonist sat munching on meat, glaring at the revelry. Is this a feast or just a meat and booze fest? I'm starving. Jorn approached, chuckling. If you want better food, level up your rank. Wait, Jorn, are you a low-ranking warrior too? The protagonist asked, confused. Nope, Jorn said, laughing. Just checking on you newbies. The protagonist paused mid-bite. Thanks for the tip about the Saga, or I'd have been toast. But wait, what happens if I die here? With a grin, Jorn replied, you become an Iron Warrior. No pain, no hunger, just endless fighting. The protagonist froze, horror-struck. That's not an Iron Warrior. That's an iron coffin. His imagination spiraled, and he nearly fainted. No way, no way, no way. I'm not dying here. Just then, Jorn pointed. Looks like your Legion assignment is about to start. A girl clad in golden armor appeared on a stage, her voice commanding. Warriors, I've seen your performance today. Now I'll announce the legions you'll join. Sweat dripped down the protagonist's forehead. Valkyrie, that's Reginleaf, daughter of Odin, Jorn said proudly. On stage, the Valkyrie raised her sword high. Look into your caps. There, you'll see the name of the god you'll pledge loyalty to. Jorn smirked. We are all going to be assigned to one of the Asgardian god legions. You'll gain even more power from your chosen god. The protagonist peeked nervously into his cap, and he think onward the only Norse god I know are Odin and Thor. Then our protagonist looking at his cup with intense gaze, and think please let it be Odin or Thor. Later, our protagonist found himself on a boat, traveling down a river with a red-haired girl. As he glanced at her, he thought, didn't they say this is a legion of a god? He clutched his head with both hands, panic rising. But why? Noticing his discomfort, the girl spoke up. Why have you been acting like that since earlier? Our protagonist, a little flustered, thought it's just me. All by myself. The girl raised a finger in the air, casually saying, don't worry. Our legion has strengths that can hold their own against anyone. Confused, he blinked and asked, what? With a grin, the girl continued, there's no one above us to nag, and no one below us to cause trouble. It's like a complete paradise. The protagonist, adjusting his glasses in panic, muttered, am I really the only one here in the Legion of Iden? He remembered the moment he'd been assigned there, and silently sat, staring at the water. Meanwhile, warriors gathered, speaking of Odin and Thor, celebrating loudly. Some boasted about their victories, others were jubilant. Our protagonist, with a disappointed expression, muttered, Iden. What a name. I've never heard of it. He glanced at the warrior he'd spoken to earlier. The warrior gave him a sad look and say stay strong, making our protagonist wonder, what's with that uncertain expression? Not long after, a white-haired girl stood up, calling out to the group. Odin's team, over here. Warriors lined up, one line for the Odin team, and one line for the Thor theme, and one online for the Freya and many others, and our protagonist searched for his spot. Iden, Iden. Suddenly, the red-haired girl, sitting on the ground, poked her ear and said, Iden. Their eyes met, and our protagonist, awkwardly clearing his throat, said, excuse me? The girl's eyes sparkled with excitement. A newcomer? Wow. Is this for real? She bounced up, nearly jumping out of her seat. How many years has it been since we had a new youngest member? Our protagonist flushed, feeling flustered, barely holding his breath. He is the world's best pro gamer, but he never had a girlfriend. The girl grinned even wider. Nice to meet you. My name's Haida. In the present at the boat, our protagonist called out, Haida, what are we even fighting against here? With a confident motion, Haida raised her hand, summoning a magical tree. She said, this is what our world looks like. We are in Asgard, which is here. What lies beyond this is Muspelheim, the land of giants, evil gods, and demons trying to invade us. He pointed at the glowing red on the tree. What does the red color mean? That's Aaron, Haida explained. But it's already destroyed. We're on the front lines now, fighting to protect the world. The protagonist, his face dropping, murmured, Ragnarok by any chance? Yep, Haida replied. That's right. We're carrying out Ragnarok. We hold the fate of the world. To put it grandly, we are fighting to protect the world. Then, in a slightly disappointed tone, she added, but honestly, we're just fighting to survive. The protagonist's mind raced. Wait, does that mean one can travel between worlds? Before he could think more on it, they reached a temple. We've arrived, Haida said, hopping off the boat. They walked up to the entrance of the temple, and Haida said, this is the temple of the goddess. Now that you're a goddess warrior, you should go pay your respects. The protagonist, a little confused, asked, will I meet the goddess here? Haida stood before a statue and shook her head. Not in person, but remotely. She resides up high. She handed him a golden apple. Stand on the avatar and try dropping this. The protagonist stared at the apple, shocked. Golden apple? He stood in front of the statue, holding the apple in his hand, thinking, I wonder if this will actually work. Without wasting time, he dropped the apple. The ground beneath him glowed in a brilliant golden light, and a voice spoke. Tae Ho, my warrior. Come closer to me. He looked up and saw the goddess Idun, the goddess of life and youth, standing before him, surrounded by the glow of a majestic tree. The protagonist instinctively knelt, overcome with respect. Just like water flowing downhill, my body knows what to do around a goddess. The goddess gently placed a hand on his head and spoke in a calm voice. I will bestow upon you their blessings. It will protect your body from the threat of death. Suddenly, golden runes appeared, etched before him, saying, Protector's mantra of vitality. Before he could fully absorb the situation, his body began glowing with golden light, and a rush of power flooded into him. He swung his hand in front of him, eyes wide. Wow, this power, he exclaimed, gripping his fist. The chronic ailments I developed from my life as a pro gamer, back pain, carpal tunnel, turtleneck, indigestion, and other symptoms have completely disappeared. The goddess, watching him, smiled gently. I look forward to your future accomplishments. Later, as our protagonist awoke from his nap, still sitting where he'd dropped the apple, he found Haida looking down at him. You've received the blessings, she said with a hint of a smile. He just stared back at her, still a little stunned, not saying anything. Haida continued, Idun is the goddess of immortality and youth. Now you can even endure pain on the battlefield to the point of death. Hearing this, the protagonist's face flushed slightly. She's so pretty, he thought. Then Haida added with a smirk, there'll hardly be any real chance of dying now you have the blessing of life. He sat up and looked at her seriously. And she continued, as you grow, your blessings will become stronger and stronger. Haida smirked. How bad would it be for our legion to get nicknamed the Zombie Legion? The protagonist thought for a moment, then asked, once I defeat all the enemies, will I be able to return to the place where I lived? He looked at her intensely, his face turning a little red. Wasn't I kind of cool just now? No wonder she's blushing. Haida laughed inwardly, thinking to herself, he really thinks he can do that. That's cute. She extended her hand to him and said, if the war ends the way you say, and that's only if we win. If you want to go back, then do so. Our protagonist, his excitement building, extended his hand toward hers. Of course, I have to go back. What joy could there be in such a crazy place? As their hands touched, the protagonist thought, oh, her hand is so warm and soft. For now, there might be a little bit of joy after all. What came next? A dream, of course, a dream that could make anyone blush. In his fantasy, Haida was his wife, dressed in a homely apron, working in their cozy kitchen. The scene unfolded with her smiling and saying, welcome back, Tae Ho. Long day at work. She wiped her hands on a towel and gestured to the dinner table. Perfect timing. Everything's ready. Tae Ho, in his dream, entered the house, kicked off his shoes at the door, and made his way to the dining area. As he sat, his imaginary wife Haida picked up a spoonful of meat, leaned close, and said playfully, "Here, Sae." Tae Ho's face turned red, his heart racing. What is this wholesome bliss? With stars in his eyes, he opened his mouth to take the bite. But the moment the meat touched his teeth, the dream shattered. Back in reality, Tae Ho bit into the tough, chewy meat in his bowl, jolting him awake. Adjusting his expression awkwardly, he stared at the unyielding piece of meat and thought, this chewy stuff snapped me right out of my daydream. Haida, noticing his struggle, chuckled nervously. "Handed him a cup? Are you okay, Tae Ho? Is the meat a bit tough?" She laughed awkwardly, wiping her forehead. "Let's work hard and rank up, okay? If we level up, we'll get better perks, better food, and nicer place to stay." She smiled warmly, encouraging him. "So hang in there, Tae Ho." Her enthusiasm sent Tae Ho's imagination spinning again. This time, he pictured them walking together in a park, their child in his arms. He lifted the baby into the air, smiling as sunlight sparkled over a Han River-esque background. Back to reality, Tae Ho found himself training on the grounds with Haida standing nearby. "All right, Tae Ho," she said, snapping him out of his daze. "Let's go over this. Every time you defeat an enemy, you earn something called a rune." Hearing the word, Tae Ho remembered something. "Now that I think about it, that time I felt some kind of red energy get absorbed into my body," Haida nodded. "Exactly. You probably got a few runes by now. You can invest them in your abilities to get stronger." Tae Ho demonstrated, summoning a glowing magical circle in his hand. Seeing it, Haida say, "You can put runes into strength, agility, magic, or willpower." "Got it," Tae Ho replied, studying the runes. "Strength and agility boost your physical abilities. But what about magic and willpower?" "Magic boosts your magical attack and defense," Haida explained, holding up a finger. "Willpower improves your focus and mental defense." "Pretty handy, huh?" Tae Ho thought for a moment. "All right, that makes sense." Then he asked, "By the way, can sagas be enhanced with magic too?" Haida tilted her head slightly, smiling. "Sagas are unique. They don't get stronger from stats alone. Their power depends on how many people know the story and how strongly they believe in it. The more famous the tale, the stronger it becomes. Sometimes a saga can grow beyond reality itself. For example, a story about catching a big snake can turn into a legend about slaying a dragon. Lower-rank warriors usually have simpler sagas, ones that boost strength or speed. Those are impressive, sure, but not quite the same as a true saga. She waved her hand, showing her own magic. Tae Ho listened intently as she continued. A true saga embodies a legend. Its effects are incredibly diverse. You can use it to transform weapons, summon an army, so the effects can be super diverse. Tae Ho's eyes lit up, imagining the possibilities. As Haida summoned a brilliant flame sword in her hand, its heat shimmering in the air, she turned to Tae Ho and said, "But remember, drawing out the power of your saga and making it stronger, that's all up to you." Tae Ho watched in awe, feeling a newfound sense of confidence rise within him. "My story," he thought, already imagining himself riding a dragon. His game character's legendary saga, the legend of the Dragon Knight Kalsted, coming to life. But before he could sink further into his daydream, a loud warning bell rang out, cutting through the air. Both he and Haida turned toward the sound. "We've got deployment orders," Haida said, her voice calm but firm. Tae Ho, shocked, blurted, "Already?" Before he could process it, a portal suddenly materialized before them, swirling with purples and blues. Tae Ho stared at it, thinking a portal? Haida pointed toward the gateway. "Go through that purple gate," she instructed. "It will take you to the staging area. Once everyone gathers, we'll head to the battlefield." Moments later, Tae Ho stood ready, his sword strapped securely to his back. He looked every bit the hero straight out of a fantasy manhwa. Meanwhile, Haida adjusted his armor, carefully straightening it as Tae Ho tried his best to remain composed. "There," she said, stepping back with a satisfied smile. "Perfect. You actually look pretty good in this." Blushing slightly, Tae Ho nodded and turned toward the portal. Without looking back, he said casually, "Well, I'm off then." But before he could step through, Haida called out, Tae Ho. He paused, glancing over his shoulder. With a gentle smile and an innocent expression, Haida said softly, don't die. For a brief moment, Tae Ho's expression changed to one of pure determination. Giving her a thumbs up, he grinned confidently. Don't worry, I'll be hard to kill thanks to Aiden's blessings. Haida chuckled softly, her warm smile following him as he stepped into the swirling portal. On the other side, Tae Ho emerged into a bustling staging area, his eyes widening in shock at the sheer number of warriors gathered. The noise, the armor clinking, and the tension in the air were overwhelming. There are so many people, Tae Ho muttered, scanning the crowd. Is there a big battle coming up or something? Before he could ponder further, a heavy hand slapped him on the back. Startled, Tae Ho spun around to see a familiar face. Jorn, he exclaimed. The burly man grinned, clapping Tae Ho on the back again. We meet again. You're looking better. Let me guess your assigned Valkyrie is a total beauty. Huh? Tae Ho's face turned slightly red as he stammered, WL. Jorn roared with laughter. Valkyries are all beauties. Lucky guy. He nudged Tae Ho forward. All right, go find your legion. Today's fight will be different. We'll have a commander leading us. Not long after, Tae Ho found himself standing before a towering man with a bushy beard and glowing eyes. The man sized him up, unimpressed. Another one from Aiden's legion. Huh, the man grunted. He pointed to a line of warriors. You look weird standing here alone. Go to the back of the line. Scratching his head awkwardly, Tae Ho mumbled, Why yes, sir. Once everyone was assembled, the commander stepped forward, his booming voice cutting through the noise. I am Ragnarok of the Heimdall Legion, he announced. I will be leading you in this battle. Our mission is to reclaim the territory taken by Noel. He raised his sword high, its blade gleaming under the light. We will be dropped directly into the heart of the battlefield, where the fighting is at its thickest. The warriors roared in response, their spirits ignited. For Asgard and the 9 realms, Ragnall shouted, standing in front of the portal with his sword held high. The army surged forward, their war cries echoing as they followed him into the fray. As the warriors gathered before the portal, preparing to step into battle, Ragnall raised his sword high once more and shouted, I will lead the way. Just follow me. The warriors roared in response, their voices filled with unwavering determination. Ragnall, Ragnall, echoed through the air as they marched behind their commander, their trust in him absolute. Standing at the back of the group, Tae Ho craned his neck but couldn't see past the wall of broad shoulders and weapons. I can't see anything, he muttered, frustration lacing his voice. Moments later, the warriors emerged from the portal into a snowy battlefield, the frigid air biting at their skin. Chaos was already unfolding before them, clashing weapons, blood-stained snow, and shouts of desperation. The allied warriors on the battlefield, noticing the reinforcements, shouted with renewed vigor. Reinforcements are here. All right, let's push them back. But their brief moment of hope was shattered when, on a distant cliff, a massive beast man wielding a hammer appeared. His hulking figure loomed over the battlefield, exuding an aura of sheer dominance. What's with that guy? Someone whispered, dread creeping into their voice. Without warning, the beast man leapt from the cliff, hammer raised high. The ground trembled beneath his landing, a deafening crack splitting through the icy terrain. The impact was so fierce that even snow and debris flew into the air, scattering in all directions. Warriors unlucky enough to be near the landing site were thrown off their feet. Is that their leader? One soldier muttered in disbelief, staring at the monster. Look at him. He's at least 4 or 5 times bigger than the others. Another chimed in, voice shaking. Hey, are you all just going to stand there gaping? Someone shouted, trying to snap the group out of their stupor. As the beast man roared, a swirling portal opened behind the monster. Inside the portal, determined voices rang out. Everyone advance. Keep moving forward. The warriors surged ahead, their resolve hardened despite the daunting sight before them. Leading the charge, Ragnall stood firmly at the front, shouting commands to rally his troops. But as they approached the battlefield, even the most seasoned warriors froze in terror at the sight of the beastman's raw power. What the heck is this thing? One of them exclaimed, voice trembling. With a single swing of his hammer, the beastman sent dozens of warriors flying into the air, their cries lost in the chaos. Snow and debris erupted, leaving a gaping scar in the ground where the hammer had struck. Just then, Tae Ho stepped through the portal, his expression calm as he surveyed the scene. His sharp eyes locked onto the beast man, giving off an aura of confidence. But inwardly, Tae Ho's heart was pounding wildly, and his legs felt like lead. Who's the idiot that opened this portal? He screamed internally, panic gripping him as he realized the overwhelming danger in front of him. The colossal beastman roared, raising its massive hammer above its head, preparing to crush Tae Ho. For a moment, Tae Ho froze, but he snapped out of his daze. Holding his sword in front of him, his eyes widened as his mind raced. Calm down. Just think of it as strategizing against a game boss, he thought, steadying his breath. He glanced at the hammer. Its enormous size and shape struck a thought in his mind. First off, what a huge pork cutlet hammer. He tapped his shield with his sword, testing its durability. A grimace formed on his face as he imagined it shattering upon impact. With this tiny shield, I can't block that. In that case, he tossed the shield aside, gripping his sword tightly, and braced himself. As the beast man swung its hammer, Tae Ho invested all his accumulated runes into agility. The moment the hammer came crashing down, Tae Ho darted to the side, his movements swift and precise. I can see it, he thought, exhilarated by his enhanced reflexes. The warriors, witnessing Tae Ho's nimble dodge, gawked in disbelief. He dodged it, someone shouted, awe and shock in their voice. The hammer's impact, however, sent a shockwave across the battlefield, launching several warriors into the air like ragdolls. Tae Ho glanced back at the monster, sweat trickling down his face. Just dodging isn't going to cut it, he thought, frustration bubbling within him. Maybe I should try attacking its legs. He shouted to the surrounding warriors, everyone, aim for the legs. The warriors rallied behind his command, charging toward the beastman with renewed determination. Let's stop it by attacking its legs, they cried. But as they attacked, the beastman swung its hammer in a wide arc, sending them flying once again. Tae Ho gritted his teeth. Let's aim for something else, he thought, frustrated. Suddenly, the monster appeared directly in front of him, its hammer raised for another devastating blow. Tae Ho's eyes widened in panic, but then he activated his power, focusing on his legs. The only method I can think of right now. Blue light enveloped his legs as he concentrated all his power, and just as the hammer came down, he leaped into the air, dodging the attack by mere inches. Soaring through the sky, Tae Ho clenched his sword tightly. I must survive this battlefield. I want to see Haida again. He remembered her gentle smile and her words, don't die. Stop with the death flags. Tae Ho screamed internally. No more flashbacks. No more tempting fate. Still in the air, Tae Ho's confidence surged. The Saga, Charge of the Warriors, has only been a movement speed buff until now. But what if I developed it beyond just a vertical jump? Closing both legs midair. He thought, for example, what if I could kick the air and leap? With newfound resolve, he kicked off the air, propelling himself downward at lightning speed. His sword gleamed as he aimed it directly at the beastman's head. Tae Ho struck with all his might, the impact creating a deafening crack as he slammed into the ground, leaving a crater beneath him. Blood spurted from the monster's head as it howled in pain, its massive body swaying. Tae Ho lay on the ground, panting heavily. He managed to push himself to his feet, wobbling slightly. I almost died, he muttered. Thanks to Aiden's blessings, I'm still alive. He glanced at the beast man, which was now writhing in agony. This is it. The opportunity to end him is now or never. Tae Ho activated the remaining runes in his hand, his will firm. Without realizing it, a glowing sword materialized in his grasp. He smirked, gripping the weapon tightly. This is what I need. With a final surge of energy, Tae Ho lunged toward the monster, his sword blazing with determination. The battlefield seemed to hold its breath as he closed the distance, ready to deliver the final blow. The scene shifts to a grand castle bathed in moonlight. On the highest balcony, a white-haired Valkyrie gazes at the stars with serene elegance. Her piercing eyes, however, were not simply admiring the celestial beauty. They were observing the battlefield below with her otherworldly powers. Suddenly, a crow swoops into the room, landing gracefully on a staff standing in the room. The Valkyrie walks over to a large map, delicately placing a chess piece on it. She mutters to herself, "We are winning." Her gaze returns to the stars, or rather, to the raging battle below. Kneeling respectfully before the crow, she bows her head. Valkyrie Raskrid greets Odin. The crow tilts its head and replies, "It is Hugin, not Odin." A sigh of relief escapes her lips. "Ah, I see." The crow ruffles its feathers and asks, "So, did anything stand out?" Raskrid hesitates, searching for the right words. Hugin's voice sharpens. "Was there no one?" "Well, it's true they're the lowest class of warriors." A knowing smile graces her lips as she finally speaks. "No, there was one. One impressive individual." Back on the battlefield, the victorious warriors erupt into jubilant cheers, their voices echoing across the snowy plains. Tae Ho stands atop the massive corpse of the fallen beastman, his sword still in hand. His pose is straight out of a fantasy novel, like a legendary hero who has just defeated the demon lord in the final battle. The crowd roars in unison. "We won! It's our victory! Glory to Odin!" Tae Ho looks around, the adoration of the crowd washing over him. A sense of déjà vu fills his mind. This cheering, it feels familiar. He remembers the moment he held a championship trophy high above his head, the crowd roaring in approval as the lights of the stadium beamed down on him. Snapping back to the present, Tae Ho glances at the sword in his hand. Runfang, he thinks, once one of the most powerful swords on the server, now just a common low-level weapon. Does that mean I'm at this level now? Looking out at the battlefield, his gaze hardens with determination. I want to keep hearing cheers. I want to become stronger. In his mind, a goal solidifies. Lee Tae Ho, the god of war, I will become the best in Valhalla. His daydream ends abruptly as a hand clasps his shoulder. It's Bjorn, grinning widely. "Great work, Tae Ho. It seems like you got better at handling your saga." Tae Ho turns, smiling. "Thanks to you, Bjorn." Bjorn laughs heartily, creating a sword out of thin air. That was quite a spectacle. Tae Ho looks at his hand as he cancels the summoned sword. "It's still new to me, but I think I can make it appear and disappear at will now." Flexing his bicep in a comical pose, Bjorn shouts, "All right, let's start moving." Confused, Tae Ho asks, "Are we heading back now?" Bjorn smirks. "What, you want to leave already? Look over there." He points toward a massive fortress in the distance. "Our goal is to reclaim that fortress. Until then, we'll be stationed here." Tae Ho's jaw drops. "Sleeping here? Really?" That night, the camp buzzes with activity, torches lighting up the snowy surroundings. Tae Ho lies in his tent, staring up at the fabric ceiling. "This was a long day," he mutters to himself. How is it real that only a single day has passed? Lying on the bed, Tae Ho thinks, come to think of it, how much stronger have I gotten? Tae Ho opens his palm, activating his runes. A glowing interface appears in front of him, displaying unknown words. Saga, Immortal Warrior, Synchronization Rate, 5% Slot 1. Slot 2, Lowest Rank Runes, 27 Inferior Rank Runes. 2 Sitting up, his eyes widen as he reads the stats. The synchronization rate has improved. I've even unlocked an extra Saga slot. Does this mean I can use 2 Sagas at the same time now? Before he can process the implications, the tent flap lifts, revealing a mischievous-looking warrior. "Warrior Lee Tae Ho," the man announces with a grin. "You have a visitor." Tae Ho furrows his brows. Why is he smiling like that? As he steps outside, he notices a crowd of warriors gathered, all with similar teasing grins. Their expressions make him uneasy. What's with their reactions? Why do they all look like this? Walking forward, Tae Ho finally sees who's waiting for him, and his heart skips a beat. Standing there, bathed in the glow of torchlight, is Haida. Her gentle smile is as radiant as ever. "Tae Ho," she says softly. Tae Ho freezes, his face heating up. Sweat trickles down his temple as he tries to compose himself. "Before diving in any further, I have some inquiry, so don't leave, there is still more to come." So if you guys have watched the video till now, I hope you enjoyed the recap of this amazing manhwa. If you have any suggestions or notice any mistakes in my video, please let me know in the comments so I can improve in the next one. I'm eagerly waiting to hear your thoughts. Sometime later, Haida is kneeling in front of Tae Ho, her head bowed in embarrassment, her face red, and her voice trembling. I'm sorry," she stammers. The scene rewinds 5 minutes earlier, revealing what had led to this. Haida, with her characteristic bright smile, had said, Tae Ho, show me all the achievements you've accomplished in your life. Tae Ho, caught completely off guard, stared at her wide-eyed. Wait, it's possible to show them to others? Haida nodded confidently. If you wanna, then yes, you can. After a moment's hesitation, Tae Ho sighed and decided to humor her. Activating his runes, he displayed his list of accomplishments from his previous life as a professional gamer. The moment the holographic list materialized, Haida's expression froze. Her eyes darted across the glowing display, her jaw slackened, and beads of sweat began rolling down her face. Now, back in the present, she's crying, bowing even lower. Oh no! How could I not recognize such a great person and act so superior? I'm sorry. Tae Ho flails his hands in a panic. Wait! Stop! There's no need for this. But Haida, with tears streaming down her face, continues, I'm sorry for being so silent until now. I was overly confident and completely blind to your greatness. Tae Ho looks at her, a mix of confusion and awkwardness on his face. He can't help but think, even her panicked expression is cute. He sighs, deciding to explain properly. Okay, listen, he says, holding up a hand to calm her. All of that is from a game. Everything you saw, all those achievements, they were things I accomplished in the virtual world. Haida pauses, blinking through her tears. A game? She touches her throat, thinking for a moment. I kinda get it, but also kinda don't. After a moment of silence, she smiles again and points a finger at him. But still, the fact that you accomplished all that is amazing in itself. Tae Ho scratches the back of his head, thinking getting praise for gaming achievements in the afterlife feels surreal, even weirder than getting a military exemption for esports. Haida then shifts gears, her expression turning serious. Anyway, let's get back to sagas. There's no limit to how many you can have. But at your current level, she raises a finger, warning him, once you create one more saga, you probably won't be able to make another for a while. So, think carefully and avoid making a useless saga. Hearing this, Tae Ho's face hardens with determination. Opening his runes, he looks at the glowing interface. Just one. What do I need the most right now? He reviews his current sagas in his mind. Immortal Warrior. Synchronization with Kalsted. Charge of a warrior is like a storm. Enhances speed and boosts movement effects. Sword of the Warrior. Allows the creation of Kalsted's weapon. Tae Ho rubs his chin, thinking deeply. At this point, I should have at least one attack skill, right? Finally, his eyes light up with excitement. The ability I need the most right now is the Eyes of the Dragon, the power to see through all things. Haida can't help but chuckle at his sudden outburst. Creepy, she teases lightly. Tae Ho, undeterred, removes his glasses. His eyes glow with a radiant blue light as the power of the saga activates. Haida smiles, leaning forward. Have you decided, Tae Ho? Yes, Tae Ho replies with conviction. This saga. He turns toward Haida, his gaze sharp and focused. It's the ability to see true things like analyzing targets in a game. To put it simply, it allows me to know the details of others. But as his eyes focus on Haida, something unexpected flashes in his vision. His thoughts spiral out of control. I can see right into the depths of her. His mind short-circuits, and his face turns bright red. He stumbles back, his head exploded in embarrassment. Haida jumps in alarm. Tae Ho, what happened? But Tae Ho can't bring himself to explain, as the saga's unintended consequences leave him thoroughly embarrassed. The scene cuts to a snowy encampment where our protagonist, Tae Ho, is wrapped head to toe in bandages. Haida stands awkwardly in front of him, holding up a hesitant hand. Are you okay? It looked like your head exploded. It was kind of scary, she says, visibly uncomfortable. Tae Ho, still recovering from his previous mishap, sighs. Yeah, I almost died, he mutters, his voice muffled by the layers of bandages. Haida looks apologetic but quickly shifts to encouragement, raising her finger again. Anyway, it's almost time for you to go. But now I really know how incredible you are. You're going to become so strong in the future. Without warning, Haida leaps forward, hugging Tae Ho tightly. Wow, you're our lucky charm, she exclaims with excitement. Tae Ho's body immediately reacts, screaming internally in panic and excitement. But Haida, oblivious to his state, keeps holding him, adding, to think you joined Aiden's legion. Just as Tae Ho tries to calm down, His emotions surge uncontrollably, and his entire body explodes in a flash of pink light again. Later in Tae Ho's tent, the green-haired warrior, Rolf, strides in, lifting the curtain with a bemused expression. "Warrior Lee Tae Ho? Are you inside?" Tae Ho, now sitting upright on his bed and wearing a helmet to hide his expressions, replies cautiously, "Yes." "What's going on?" Rolf raises an eyebrow at the helmet, but introduces himself with a military salute. "My name is Rolf. I'm from Uller's Legion, assigned to Ciri's unit. Everyone's gathering at the outpost, so I've come to get you." Tae Ho activates his dragon eyes to analyze Rolf. "Let's see," he mutters, his mind scanning the information. Name, Rolf. Title, Wolf Hunter. But as always, unexpected details appear, and Tae Ho's mind screams internally. X-ray mode off. Off. He panics, barely avoiding another embarrassing explosion. Rolf, confused by Tae Ho's odd reaction, shrugs it off. When our protagonist and Rolf walking towards the gathering, he say, "You're really lucky, you know. A visit from a Valkyrie? That's a huge deal. I envy you so much," he says, clearly impressed. Tae Ho scratches his head awkwardly. "So Valkyrie visits are like celebrities dropping by? Not bad." He muses, feeling a mix of pride and discomfort. Curious, he asks Rolf, "What blessings does Uller's Legion grant?" Rolf grins and explains, "We can choose between stealth or tracking initially, but eventually we gain both. I chose stealth." Demonstrating, he vanishes momentarily before reappearing. "Cloaking!" Tae Ho exclaims, impressed. Rolf nods and elaborates. "Tracking, on the other hand, lets you locate targets using even the smallest trace. It's invaluable on the battlefield." At the gathering, Tae Ho and Rolf arrive at the outpost where warriors huddle around a blazing fire. And he say, "We have arrived." Rolf announces, "Commander, I brought warrior Lee Tae Ho." Tae Ho's eyes widen as he spots the unit commander, a powerful-looking woman named Ciri. He stiffens, feeling both intimidated and awkward. "The first non-Valkyrie woman I've seen here. Why does she look so intimidating?" he wonders. Ciri steps forward, her presence commanding respect. "So, you're the warrior who took down the giant knoll today. Impressive. Nice to meet you, warrior Lee Tae Ho," she says. Her aura feels overwhelming to Tae Ho, who imagines a giant black wolf growling behind her. What's this insane pressure? She's even scarier than the other warriors here, he thinks, barely managing to stammer, standing like a new recruit on the military soldier. "Why, yes. I'm Lee Tae Ho." And he, imagining her intimidating figure, he thinks she's super charismatic. As the sky glowed with a mysterious blue light, all the warriors raised their heads in awe. Someone whispered, "It's a Valkyrie." Confusion spread through the crowd until they realized what, or who, it actually was. Emerging gracefully from the radiant light was the white-haired Valkyrie Raskrid, descending from the massive castle in the distance. Her figure radiated authority as she surveyed the gathered warriors. Tae Ho felt a wave of panic surge through him as his dragon eyes locked onto her. Amazing. That's Valkyrie Raskrid, he thought, sweat rolling down his face. But then his eyes focused on her title, Ice Princess, hovering above her head like a game tag. Wait, why Ice Princess? He wondered in confusion. Is that a nickname the warriors gave her? Or is it just how my dragon eyes interpret things? He tried not to laugh, feeling that the title clashed with her commanding presence. Raskrid landed softly before the group, her composure unwavering. Placing one hand confidently on her waist, she addressed them with a firm voice. "I am Raskrid of Odin's Legion. I am in charge of this battlefield." Turning briefly, she glanced at the photo of the late Commander Ragnar, her expression somber yet resolute. "As you may be aware, with the death of Ragnar, the Ragnar unit has been integrated into the Ciri unit," she said confidently. She then shifted her gaze to the woman standing at attention, Commander Ciri. "I am counting on you, Ciri," Raskrid said with authority. Ciri stepped forward, her posture firm and professional. She saluted sharply. "I will carry out my duty." The Valkyrie Raskrid extended her hand, summoning a piece of parchment seemingly from thin air. Holding it up like an official decree, she began reading aloud, her voice clear and commanding. "I have observed your remarkable efforts. For those who have made significant contributions, rewards will be given. When Tae Ho heard his name, his heart skipped a beat. Warrior Lee Tae Ho, Raskrig continued. You single-handedly defeated the leader of the Knoll unit, the giant Knoll. As a reward, you will receive a pouch of gold coins, runes, and 10 contribution points to your legion. Tae Ho's excitement bubbled up, but he forced himself to maintain a calm exterior. I must not smile, he thought, barely containing his glee. Am I already becoming famous here? He subtly lowered his face, feigning composure, but the murmurs from the crowd betrayed his rising reputation. From among the warriors, someone shouted, "Isn't that the guy who got visited by a Valkyrie?" Suddenly, the entire group buzzed with excitement. What? Really? That's amazing. He's something else? Damn it, I'm so jealous. The chatter and admiration swirled around Tae Ho, who couldn't help but think to himself, unbelievable. His mood dipped slightly. Getting visited by a Valkyrie seems to be a bigger deal than defeating a boss monster. Before he could dwell on it, Raskrid raised her hand to silence the crowd. All right, everyone, quiet down. Tomorrow afternoon, we begin the operation to reclaim the fortress. We will be deploying the Steel Rain, and all warriors present here will be boarding it. At the mention of Steel Rain, the warriors erupted into unified cheers, their excitement palpable. Tae Ho, however, felt a tinge of panic as he glanced at the green-haired Rolf beside him. Steel Rain? What's that? He whispered cautiously. Rolf's elation drained instantly. His expression turned awkward. I don't know either, he admitted sheepishly. That's it. The next day, the Valkyrie hovered in the air, her sword gleaming as she pointed it toward the fortress. Charge, she commanded. At her cry, the warriors roared and rushed forward, engaging the beasts guarding the fortress. A fierce battle erupted, swords clashing and cries echoing through the battlefield. High above, a beastman observed the chaos with a scowl, his fury growing. Meanwhile, Tae Ho's thoughts flashed back to the strategy briefing. The warrior commander had explained the plan in detail. When the siege begins, we'll take advantage of the enemy's focus on the front lines. Our unit will scale the walls and unlock the fortress gate. To do that, we must reach the rune magic control room. The dark green-haired warrior, leaning casually, had smirked and said, We're climbing the walls in this still rain. Sounds easy enough. Tae Ho had looked at him, unimpressed, thinking, pretending to know everything when you're clueless. But then, a bead of sweat had rolled down Tae Ho's face as realization hit him. Wait, what is still rain? Is it teleportation magic? Back in the present, Tae Ho found himself and 4 other warriors crammed inside a large barrel, which felt more like an amusement park ride gone wrong. So this is still rain? He thought, his face pale. The green-haired warrior beside him gave him a thumbs up. Tae Ho, you excited? Tae Ho deadpanned. Not at all. Another warrior, grinning with excitement, shouted, Valhalla, here I come. Tae Ho blinked and muttered, We're already in Valhalla. A horn blast interrupted them. Prepare to fire, yelled a warrior outside. The barrel's door slammed shut, and Tae Ho squeezed his eyes shut, thinking of Haida. With a thunderous roar, the cannon fired, launching the barrel through the air. Tae Ho and the others inside clung to whatever they could, some cheering, others panicking. The sky was soon filled with barrels, each carrying warriors hurtling toward the fortress. Tae Ho's barrel crashed into the fortress wall with a deafening thud, and the warriors tumbled out. One groaned, clutching his back. Oh dear, my back! Another sprawled on the ground, whimpered. I bit my tongue. Tae Ho staggered to his feet, blood trickling from his nose. He barely had time to recover before the commander barked. Prepare for battle. The enemies are coming. From the shadows, a swarm of giant spider-like bugs emerged, surrounding them. Damn, there are so many, a warrior exclaimed. Tae Ho analyzed the situation, his eyes narrowing. The giants move in groups of 5. If we take down the leaders, the rest will scatter like headless chickens. The green-haired warrior frowned. They all look the same. How are we supposed to find the leaders? Activating his dragon eye, Tae Ho saw the bugs' names glowing above their heads, just like NPCs in a game. One stood out. There it is, he thought. I can see the leaders with my dragon eye. I have a Saga. Suddenly, the commander stepped in front of him, aiming her crossbow. Tae Ho froze, blushing as he realized how close they were. She didn't notice, focused on the task. Point them out with your finger, she ordered. Tae Ho snapped out of it and nodded. Got it. With confidence, he pointed to the first leader. That one. Then another. And that one. He quickly marked all the group leaders. The commander, without hesitation, fired her crossbow at the targets, and the warriors followed her lead, attacking in unison. With dramatic flair, Tae Ho pointed to the last leader. The commander's crossbow was already aimed at it. The warriors moved swiftly, overwhelming the remaining bugs. Cheers erupted as the last leader fell, signaling their victory over the swarm. With the bug leaders defeated, the remaining bugs suddenly stopped their attacks. Instead of retaliating, they turned and began retreating, leaving the battlefield eerily quiet. But the momentary peace didn't last. A soldier from the fortress's Beastman guards blew a horn, and a wave of Beastman soldiers poured out, rushing toward Tae Ho's group. Damn, they're swarming us again, the commander cursed. She quickly turned to her team. We'll mobilize a defensive squad. Leave this to us and head for the control room. The green-haired warriors snapped to attention, giving a sharp salute. Understood. The commander's gaze shifted to Tae Ho. Take warrior Lee Tae Ho with you, she instructed. Then, with a confident smile, she added, I'll entrust this to you, Aiden's warrior. Tae Ho, still slightly confused but determined, returned the salute. Standing alongside the three other warriors, he unconsciously struck a pose reminiscent of a Power Rangers squad. The green-haired warrior grinned. Stick close to me, he said, activating his ability, Blessing of Ullr's Stealth. In an instant, their figures vanished into thin air. Behind them, the commander and her remaining forces engaged the Beastman soldiers in fierce combat. Reappearing near the fortress wall, the green-haired warrior studied his surroundings before declaring, I've memorized the map. There's a hidden door around here. He located the door, pushed it open, and revealed a tunnel leading underground. This is a temporary passage to the control room, he said, stepping inside. The group entered the dimly lit hall, the green-haired warrior lighting the way with a torch. As they walked, Tae Ho suddenly got tangled in a thick spider web. Pulling it off his face with some difficulty, he muttered internally, Why are there so many webs? Glancing around, he thought, it seems like this passage hasn't been used in a very long time. They pressed on, unaware that a massive spider was silently watching them from the ceiling, its many eyes fixed on the group. As Tae Ho and his group walked cautiously through the dimly lit hall, the massive wolf spider silently trailed them from the ceiling above. Suddenly, the green-haired warrior, Rolf, sensed something amiss. He turned abruptly and warned, Everyone, watch your steps. The group tensed up, scanning their surroundings. Without warning, one of the soldiers was snatched up and devoured by the spider. Tae Ho, pointing toward the creature, shouted, Rolf, over there! Rolf looked up, his eyes narrowing as he identified the attacker. It's a wolf spider, he said grimly. Damn it, it must have been starving. It's too late to save him. Tae Ho activated his dragon eye and scanned the area. His voice was urgent as he shouted, Rolf, there's more than one. In that instant, the ceiling above them erupted as countless wolf spiders descended, their fangs glistening with venom. Panic spread through the group, but Tae Ho forced himself to stay calm. Think, Lee Tae Ho. What's their weakness? His analysis revealed the spider's abilities, paralysis venom, and their weakness, fire. Without hesitation, he summoned his power. A glowing sword materialized in his hand. Rolf, surprised, muttered, A sword appeared in your hand? Tae Ho didn't waste time explaining. He hurled the sword at one of the spiders, commanding it to activate its effect. The sword exploded into brilliant flames, consuming several spiders in a fiery blast. Let's move while we have the chance, Tae Ho yelled, sprinting ahead. The group dashed through the hall, narrowly evading the spiders. Rolf shouted, Tae Ho, are you a mage? Another warrior added. And what about the sword? I can make another one. Tae Ho replied, his focus unwavering as they fled like characters in a frantic game. Finally, they reached their destination, a sturdy door. Tae Ho pointed and exclaimed, There's the door. Once we're inside, we're safe. He and Rolf entered first, urging the others, Quickly get in. As the last warrior entered, the door remained ajar, and a spider managed to slip through. The group scrambled to close the door, Rolf and another warrior pushing with all their strength while Tae Ho fought off the intruding spider. With a final heave, the door slammed shut, and Tae Ho dispatched the remaining spider inside. Breathing heavily, the group took a moment to recover. Tae Ho noticed a glowing stone in the center of the room and approached it. "This is the control room," he said, his voice tinged with relief. Rolf nodded, standing beside the stone. "To be precise, it's the emergency control room. The fortress's second hidden control room." Tae Ho, impressed, thought no one of the path here was so tough. And since it's hidden, there weren't any guards. Rolf pulled a device from his pocket. "Anyway, let's hurry." He placed the device on the glowing stone. "We need to open the front gate quickly to minimize our allies' losses." The stone emitted a brilliant light. Suddenly, a holographic girl appeared above it, her voice calm and mechanical. "Welcome. My name is Black Fortress. Please issue your command." Rolf and another warrior stared at the girl, their faces flustered and eyes filled with admiration. Tae Ho glanced at them and quipped, "Weren't you in a hurry?" Snapping back to reality, a bead of sweat rolled down Rolf's face as he stammered. "Open the gate." "The gate!" The holographic girl responded, "Understood." But to their horror, the room's door opened instead and spiders began pouring in. The group screamed in unison, "No, not that gate, the fortress gate, the fortress gate." For a brief moment, everyone's hearts seemed to stop as they processed their narrow survival. Breathing heavily, the green-haired warrior wiped sweat from his brow and muttered, "Mission accomplished. For now, we just need to defend this place until our forces capture the fortress." He glanced at Tae Ho with a sly grin, his cheeks slightly red. "Looks like we got some time. So, Tae Ho, let's talk about women." Tae Ho shot him a disbelieving look, his expression saying, "Are you serious right now?" But before anyone could respond, the holographic girl interrupted their brief moment of relief. Her tone was calm but urgent. "Warning, an intruder is approaching the control room. Prepare for combat." The tension in the room spiked as the beast man from earlier, the one who had watched the battle from the high vantage point, appeared, bursting through the iron door. Tae Ho froze in shock. Through that thick iron door? Rolf glanced outside and muttered, "There was a horde of spiders out there." He trailed off as he noticed all the spiders lying dead. His eyes widened in disbelief. "Wait, it took out all the spiders." The beast man, with piercing red eyes and an aura of rage, growled menacingly at the group. Then, with a roar that shook the room, he bellowed, "Valhalla rats! I will tear you all to shreds." The sheer force of his voice sent chills down their spines. Even the bold warrior's face turned pale, and the group instinctively stepped back. Tae Ho, however, tightened his grip on his summoned sword. "Stay calm. Think of Hada." The group launched an all-out attack, each giving their best effort. The beast man swung his massive hammer with brutal force, sending Parag, the bold warrior, flying across the room. The impact kicked up a cloud of dust and sand, obscuring the battlefield. The beast man paused, scanning the room. "Where's the tiny one?" he muttered, his red eyes searching. Above him, Tae Ho crouched silently on the ceiling, his sword ready for a surprise strike. With a determined leap, he launched himself at the beast man, his blade aimed for a decisive blow. But the beastman's reflexes were sharp. He noticed Tae Ho at the last moment, dropped his hammer, and intercepted him mid-air. Catching Tae Ho like a toy, the beastman smirked cruelly before slamming him into the ground with explosive force. The impact echoed through the room, and the floor cracked beneath Tae Ho's body. Rolf shouted in panic, "Tae Ho!" Tae Ho coughed violently, blood dripping from his mouth as he lay sprawled on the ground. The beastman loomed over him, his red eyes burning with fury. Seeing Tae Ho crumpled on the ground, Rolf shouted at him in panic, "Tae Ho, get yourself together!" The beastman shifted his gaze from Tae Ho to the other warriors, his red eyes gleaming with murderous intent. Meanwhile, Tae Ho drifted in a strange dreamlike state. He found himself floating in a black void, surrounded by nothingness. What is this feeling? He wondered, his thoughts echoing in the emptiness. Suddenly, a faint light appeared above him, growing brighter. So this is what that feels like, Tae Ho thought, gazing at the light. Back in reality, the beast man raised his massive fist, ready to crush Tae Ho. The moment of impact drew near, and Tae Ho, still in his dreamlike state, felt a jolt of panic. "Wait, no, this isn't it yet. But now I'm really going to die. Damn it." Just as the beast's fist descended, Rolf fired an arrow enhanced with fire magic. The blazing arrow struck the beast man, forcing him to stumble back. Rolf shouted to the bald warrior, "Get yourself together. We need to protect Tae Ho." The beast man roared in anger, his eyes darting between Rolf and Tae Ho. "You little pest. I'll kill you for that." He paused, as if deciding who to attack first. His gaze shifted between Rolf, who had his bow drawn, and Tae Ho, who still lay motionless on the ground. In a moment that left everyone stunned, Tae Ho did something completely unexpected. He pretended to be dead. The beast man hesitated, his expression twisting in confusion. He growled, "What?" His head tilted as he examined Tae Ho, who lay limp and unresponsive. Even the green-haired warrior couldn't believe what he was seeing. For a moment, the scene felt eerily familiar, almost like something out of a martial arts anime. This reminds me of that Baki fight between Kakukeo and Yujiro Hama, even though Tae Ho version feels a lot less dignified. The beast man finally snapped out of his confusion. His fiery gaze locked onto Rolf. "All right, you annoying archer," he snarled, cracking his knuckles. "You'll be the first to die." With that, the beast man began to advance toward Rolf, his steps heavy and deliberate. The green-haired warrior, arrows clamped between his teeth for rapid fire, prepared to strike again. "Damn it," he muttered. "I'll give this one more shot." The beast man, roaring in anger, charged at him, hammer raised. But from behind the beast man, Tae Ho slowly rose, trembling, barely able to stand. "It hurts so much. I feel like I could die," he thought, gritting his teeth. But as the beast man neared Rolf, Tae Ho's resolve hardened. "I haven't died yet." Summoning every ounce of strength, Tae Ho lunged at the beast man from behind, his sword glowing faintly in his hand. With a swift, decisive slash, he targeted the beastman's lower half, slicing through it cleanly as though it were nothing more than a cucumber. He only stopped his attack once he landed beside Rolf, gasping for breath. The beastman roared in agony, clutching his wounded body and collapsing to his knees. Rolf, holding his nose with a towel, looked at Tae Ho with a mix of shock and slight disappointment. "Tae Ho," he said, pointing at the writhing beastman, "that was a bit extreme. Just finish him off already." Tae Ho hesitated, guilt flashing across his face. "I'm sorry," he said softly, as a fellow man. He activated his power, and a hammer materialized in his hand. With a determined swing, he delivered the final blow, ending the beastman for good. The group stood in silence for a moment before bursting into cheers of victory. Both warriors leapt onto Tae Ho, slapping his back enthusiastically. "For Aiden! Hail Aiden!" they shouted. Tae Ho barely acknowledged them, his focus drawn to his saga, where glowing text read, "Synchronization, 7% complete." The siege of the Black Fortress ended in a resounding victory for Valhalla's warriors. Across the battlefield, a mighty figure held the severed head of Frostmane, the last boss of the Knoll Legion. It was Bragi from Thor's Legion, a true hero of the battle. Overhead, Odin's crow observed the scene, its keen eyes taking everything in. "Raskrid," Odin thought, "you got your eye on this Lee Tae Ho instead of Bragi? Interesting." Later that evening, the fortress came alive with celebration. Warriors gathered to feast and drink, their laughter echoing into the night. The golden-armored Valkyrie raised her glass high, addressing the crowd. "Once again, valiant warriors, you've claimed yet another victory. Enjoy tonight, you've earned it." Amid the celebration, Tae Ho sat alone atop the fortress wall, a cup in hand, staring at the starry sky. His body ached, and he couldn't shake the weight of the battle. Rolf climbed up to join him. "How's your body holding up?" he asked, concern in his voice. Tae Ho gave a wry smile. "Honestly, I feel like I'm going to die." Rolf chuckled, pointing a finger at him. "Lucky you're still alive. When you got slammed into the ground earlier, I was terrified." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Captain Siri, bottle in hand. "Mind if I join you for a moment?" she asked, her tone relaxed. The detached squad's contribution was substantial today. "Would you accept a drink from me?" Rolf's expression immediately lit up like an eager puppy. He held out his cup, nearly spilling its contents. "It's an honor. I've always wanted to have a drink with you, Captain." Tae Ho stared at Rolf in disbelief. Before he could respond, the rest of the squad appeared, shouting, "Me too! Me too!" and clamoring for drinks. Siri, clearly amused, raised her bottle high. "For Valhalla!" The warriors erupted in cheers, raising their cups for Captain Siri. They shouted in unison. Tae Ho held his cup silently, observing the scene. I thought she was a cool person. He mused, watching the lively Captain Siri laugh and drink alongside her man. Meanwhile, Rolf enthusiastically retold the tale of how Tae Ho cut through the beast man like a cucumber, adding exaggerated details. The warriors cringed at the graphic imagery, their expressions twisting in panic. Tae Ho, however, found his attention drawn to Siri, who stood off to the side, quietly sipping her drink. Her expression was softer now, almost wistful. So, she can make that kind of expression too, Tae Ho thought, a faint smile forming on his lips. Alright, that's a wrap for today's video. Thanks for sticking around till the end. You're the real MVP. If you're itching for more of this series, drop a comment and let me know. And hey, if you want front row seats to the next part, go ahead and subscribe, tap that bell, and get ready for your notification dance when the next video drops. Catch you next time.